Hi, everybody. So we are here, and Abby and Jeremy are with me again. It's been a little while. We have discussed all 7 of the Star Wars films in previous videos, podcasts, and we are going to now... Oh, sorry, shoot. Sorry. Okay, yeah, we are going to discuss all 7 of the Star Wars films, and we are going to rank them in this podcast. And it's going to be challenging. But you want to introduce yourselves, Abby and Jeremy?
Hi, I'm Abby.
Hi, I'm Jeremy.
Yeah. And okay, so I'm going to have the Q&A open. So if you want to share, if you're watching live, if you want to share your rankings, and you can put them in the comment section as well. You can, if you think we're crazy, out of our minds, then you can also put that as well. So let's, what we're going to do is we are going to divide it up into pairs of 2. So we'll do 7 and 6 first, and each of us will share our rankings, and then we will kind of explain why, and then we will keep going from there. Then we'll do 5, 4, 3, 2, and we'll share our number 1 of the Star Wars movies. And so I'm going to start, and so my number 7 actually changed in my rewatch that I did with you guys, because for a long time it was Attack of the Clones, because I hated that movie so much. But I have to say, on the rewatch, Phantom Menace has just nothing. It is completely unnecessary movie. There's just, and even the stuff that I used to defend, I just felt like it didn't even matter at all, and it wasn't that good. Like the Darth Maul fight is kind of choreographed, and it looks like they're all hopping and jumping, and the, I guess because the little kid's sort of annoying, I don't think the pod race is that good, and it doesn't matter to the story. And I thought Liam Neeson seemed kind of flat. I mean, just all the stuff I used to defend it on, I didn't hold up really. And so for me, I have to go with Phantom Menace as the worst one, because as the bottom, because I just don't think it needs to exist. Whereas I think there are a few things in Attack of the Clones that actually add to the lore and to the story. And Phantom Menace introduced a lot of things I hate, like midichlorians. So
I think Attack of the Clones must be your number 6 then.
Yes, so that kind of goes in. Attack of the Clones is my number 6. The romantic dialogue is so bad. The chemistry is awful. The special effects are horrible. They don't hold up. You have insane things like this bounty hunter trying to kill a queen with a centipede, with a killer centipede. I mean, just stuff that's so stupid. And also, I forgot to say, you have Jar Jar Binks in Phantom Menace that is horrible. And and yeah, so Attack of the Clones, it's just boring. It's dumb. It's not even like a Nicholas Sparks movie in space. Like that I could maybe have some fun with. It's not even that good.
Yeah.
And so the only reason I put it above Phantom Menace for me is because I feel like a few little things about the motivation of Anakin get developed that are actually like important to the lore of Star Wars. And I think that the battle is okay between the Jedis. You actually do some Jedis throw down, and that's kind of fun. And I think that Count Dooku is kind of a decent villain for Star Wars. And so yeah, those are my 7 and 6. They're both very weak films though. So what about you, Abby? What's your 7 and 6?
Well, I had the same 2 films, but I had them reversed. So Attack of the Clones was at the bottom for me because that one I feel like lets me down the most. Like, this is when we should love Anakin. This is when we should start empathizing with him and caring about him. And I just want to punch him in the throat. I just hate him so much. And Padme is also terrible. And I'm like, what are you thinking? Why are you interested in him? It makes no sense whatsoever to me.
Yeah.
And Phantom Menace, I think one thing Phantom Menace has going for it is it was the first one after a long period of no Star Wars movies. And so there was some at least initial, like, oh, we get to see some of our people again, and we get some sort of glimpse into the past of Darth Vader. That's exciting. So it kind of had that, at least when it was first released, it had that initial gleam of, ooh, another Star Wars movie. And that gives it a point. I mean,
yeah. I defended it for years. I thought it was okay, but on the rewatch...
Yeah. See, Attack of the Clones has the disadvantage... that was all worn off by the time Attack of the Clones came out. And so it was like, all right, let's get some meat here. Okay,
yeah.
We put up with this kind of first movie, but we were excited. And then Attack of the Clones comes out, and you're like, yeah, okay, we're going to get some real story here. And
then Attack of the Clones, you have Hayden Christensen, too, which... so bad. He's so bad.
It just makes me groan to even think about him in that movie. He was just this obnoxious emo teen, and I just didn't like him at all. And I feel like I should love him. I should be falling in love with him. I should be rooting for him to some degree. And I'm not. I'm just like, whatever. You're stupid. I don't want to watch any more movies about you. Well, those are my 6 and 7.
Yeah, so Jeremy, what about you?
All right, so this was really difficult. Not choosing the bottom 2, but the ranking of all the movies overall. So I'll just preface by showing I made this little spreadsheet, which you're not going to see the details of.
Oh, nice.
I ranked about 13 or 14 different categories of parts of a movie, and things like
I love it.
Humor, suspense. Do I want to watch more after seeing this? Just things like that. And so that's how I came up with my rankings, because I really could, I could come up with what's my favorite, what's my least favorite, but sorting out that middle group was really hard, and so I had to go to something mathematical. And after seeing it, I totally agree with what I found. So, well, and that makes sense.
Cool.
But anyway, so my bottom 2, number 7, start with Attack of the Clones. I just cannot stand it. You take from the CG cows on Tatooine to the sappy romantic dialogue that nobody is believing, to the sand monologue. There is not a whole lot there that's redeemable, plus it's dreadfully slow. Probably the only redeeming quality where I marked it higher than Phantom Menace was a couple of areas where it was marked higher. They did scale back Jar Jar's role a little, it does end with fairly decent lightsaber battles with Yoda fighting Count Dooku. But it's still right there at my bottom is Attack of the Clones. Next up, number 6, Phantom Menace, which I actually felt like, it ended up with kind of an okay rating. It was a few points higher on my scale. The low point, of course, was Jar Jar, which I really think is really unacceptable. To that point, Star Wars had been funny and done humor very well, and when you introduce Jar Jar, funny turned to stupid, and that was not okay.
Yeah.
And probably one of the other biggest downfall of Phantom Menace was killing off Darth Maul and killing off Qui-Gon. I kind of like killing Qui-Gon to add depth to Obi-Wan, but I felt like it was too soon. We really didn't have time for either Darth Maul or Qui-Gon to really give us the emotional attachment that we needed to really feel their loss, whether you go dark or light. So those are 6 and 7 for me.
It's hard to argue with those. I went back and forth because they're not. You're kind of arguing on different kinds of bad at a certain point. But yeah, and there's also like weirdly sort of racist things. There's strange things in Attack of the Clones, like the fact that Padme wears all these skimpy clothing all the time, and she's makes nonsensical choices, and yeah, it's really not good. Not good. And so, okay, so let's talk about our number 5 and number 4. So this one is where it should get a little more interesting, I think. So for me, number 5 is Revenge of the Sith. For me, watching this movie, I actually saw it for the first time last fall, and I was just kind of, meh. It's fine. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's got a lot of CGI that looks okay sometimes, but then looks bad other times. And I thought that Hayden is a little bit better, but it's still terrible in the scenes with him and Padme. Just don't have chemistry at all. And it's just... And they sort of turn Padme into this, like... I don't know, she's just sort of simpering and standing around and feeling sad, and she's just not the empowered person that we're supposed to believe she is in Phantom Menace. And I didn't like the way that they kill off Dooku so fast, because I thought that he was at least like somewhat a good villain, and he had potential, and then he's just gone. And I didn't like Grievous. I thought he was kind of a lame character. I don't like the scene where they're like, where he's fighting with all the lightsabers. I think that looks cheesy. I don't like what they did to Yoda in that movie and made him kind of a wimp. But I like Palpatine. I think he's pretty cool. And I don't mind the sort of journey that Anakin takes as far as him trying to save Padme. I think there's something there, at least. There's some emotion there. He was supposed to be the chosen one. And yeah, so there's a few things, but overall I was just kind of on it. So that's my number 5. And then my 4 is number 4, is New Hope. And for a long time, this was my favorite Star Wars movie. But, I mean, sorry, I messed up. Number 4 is Return of the Jedi. What am I saying? I'm going crazy. Number 4 is Return of the Jedi. Got it mixed up. Number 4 is Return of the Jedi, and I like Return of the Jedi. I think it's a solid film, but I don't really like the beginning. It's fine, but it feels like sort of a monster movie. It feels like we're in like Mummy, and you get kind of 2 monsters, and I totally gave away my number 3, but anyway, you have 2 monsters, and I feel like you could have just had 1. And I don't mind the Ewoks. A lot of people hate them. I don't mind the Ewoks, but I like it much better with the last hour, once the action starts going, and things kind of... I don't really like Leia in the gold bikini. I don't really like when they kill off the slave. I think that's a little gratuitous and doesn't really feel like Star Wars to me. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that's my that's my 5 and 4. But I think that you get a really nice sort of sense of closure with Return of the Jedi, and the scenes between Luke and Vader are excellent, and I like Landau, his scenes, and you got nice sort of romantic banter between Leia and Han. So those are my 5 and 4.
Wow, I'm surprised.
Yeah?
I'm surprised you had Return of the Jedi that low on your list.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, yeah, it's just that beginning for me in Return of the Jedi that I just feel like it just doesn't feel like a Star Wars movie to me, and I just wish it would kind of go a little faster.
Yeah.
But anyway, what's yours? 5 and 4.
You know, these 2 were really tough for me. Even in the last couple minutes, I'm like, oh, is that really my 5, and is that really my 4, or do I want to switch them? So I might put them on essentially equal footing. And for right now, I have A New Hope in position 5.
Interesting.
Um, I don't know why. Maybe I've seen that movie too many times. When Jeremy and I have a really hard time keeping track of which movie is which. And
Yeah.
it's partly because, especially with the episodes 4 through 6, like, as a child, I never really sat down and watched them all, but I know the scenes from all of them, because my brother was constantly watching them. And I never sat down and watched them with him, but I'd catch a scene here and there. So I was like, hey, Jeremy, which one is A New Hope? Is that the one with the trash compactor? Like, there are certain scenes that stick in my mind.
Yeah.
And the fact that, to me, that one is the one with the trash compactor shows me that it hasn't had that much of an impact on me. Like, I love the trash compactor scene. I think it's funny. I think it's great. And I don't really care about the rest of it.
How dare you?
No, I think the only reason Revenge of the Sith really goes ahead of it, though, because there are a lot of things I really don't like about Revenge of the Sith. Mainly Padme. I want to destroy her. That's a movie that I'm like, wow, Lucas is such a chauvinist. Like,
Yeah.
he does not understand women at all.
No.
And so I really hate Padme in that movie a lot. But I feel like it has more, like, emotional weight and more, I don't know what you'd say. It does more as far as telling the story to me than A New Hope does. Like, it has that really critical transformation. We finally see this is how he became Vader. And part of it, too, is it gave us that that moment we were looking for in those first 3 movies. We really wanted all 3 movies to be about this transformation, and really only the last one was satisfying in that way.
Yeah, I agree. It is satisfied in that regard.
And I really like that, but it is a lot less rewatchable, I think, than A New Hope. Like, it hasn't held up as well. So I don't know. I kind of have them on equal footing. My 5 and 4 are interchangeable.
All right. This will be. I'll be curious to see what you say, Jeremy.
Okay, so I will preface this by saying the total points you could get on my scale were 70. So my scale was 0 to 70 for total points for the movie. And there is a gigantic gulf between my number 2 and my number 3, as in...
We're on 4 and 5, aren't we?
Well, sorry, from the bottom up. So between number 6 and number 5, so just so you're aware, Phantom Menace I had about 35.5 points out of 70. And jumping to number 5 with Return of the Jedi has 55 points. So it's a jump of 20 points and into a significantly good range. So yes, I have Return of the Jedi at number 5 on my list. Very good strengths in the do I want to keep watching? Do I want to know what happens next? Absolutely. It's giving you that Star Wars feel. They did a great job with special effects in the movie. Characters were believable. There was good suspense, good humor. Just all around a really good movie. And my number, what am I moving to now? Number 4, A New Hope. So again, this is, and I'll say too, my number 5, 4, and 3 are separated by about 2 points on my scale. So that's just how difficult this middle group was to choose. I felt like A New Hope, again, only good on humor. I think there were good elements of humor, but I didn't feel like it was great. There was a moderate level of suspense, where you really weren't sure things would work out. Getting that final scene, blowing up the Death Star, just a great, iconic movie ending. A great deal of mystery. It's the initial one. You have, what is the Force, and you're right there with Luke, learning step by step what it's about and moving through it. Great job with special effects. The score, absolutely memorable. You have, it's the one that introduced us, to all these great John Williams themes. Lightsaber action, I actually rated it fairly low at a 2, understanding that we have basically just two old men fighting with lightsaber battles, but I felt like they stumbled on a really awesome prop in the lightsaber and a great element to this universe, and they should have tried to do more with it, I think, even in this first film. But overall, a good to great movie, but A New Hope is my number 4.
So is there anything that Jedi and New Hope scored the highest on out of your rankings?
So
Just
they scored the highest in do I want to see what's going to happen next, which is just one of those feel things. A New Hope scored the highest mark in pacing of the movie, which Return of the Jedi did not get full marks because the beginning really could have done with about 20 minutes less or so. They both did great in A New Hope give you that Star Wars feel that was kind of an odd little category for me, but it established the Star Wars feel, and I just felt like Return of the Jedi got a 4 out of 5, so it was very close, but just didn't quite feel exactly the same. Special effects, they were both at a 5 for what they were working with, and A New Hope had the perfect score in memorable score for the music, whereas Return of the Jedi, I struggle to remember some of those themes, but Star Wars, just A New Hope just stands out. I can remember them all very clearly.
That's really, really good point. I'm glad you mentioned the score. I think that is really, really strong in New Hope, and I think the rewatchability. I think that's a really good point. We have 2 comments from Matthew Ehrenhold, who's watching. I'm going to try to do better about keeping track of the comments. He says, mainly Padme, I want to destroy her. I feel like that should be embroidered on a shirt. So he liked that you said, Abby. And then he says, I love the trash compactor scene too. So there you go. And so, yeah, I think those are valid reasons. For me, I would say 2 of these movies are bad movies. So the rest of them are really solid. So it's about kind of what you like in a movie. It's not like that's what makes rankings kind of tricky and sort of fun, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
So, okay, let's do my 3 and my 2. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep track of everything here. So my number 3 is Star Wars: A New Hope, and this was hard because it was my favorite Star Wars movie for a long, long time, and because it was the most entertaining experience I've ever had at a movie theater was going to see the re-release of New Hope, and I love movies that make me want to cheer. Where I just, yeah, woohoo, and when the whole audience is getting into it, and for me, with New Hope, it totally has that. When there's a lot of different moments that make me want to cheer, but I love just that ending with the Death Star, and oh my gosh, they beat Darth Vader. I think the introduction of Vader is so effective and so chilling. He's such a great. I feel like now all we want are these sort of anti-heroes that you get all over, and I think that Vader shows that you can do this all bad villain effectively. You have to make him strong, and of course we learned with the prequels and stuff, and with little hints to his archaic religion and things like that. There's little hints, but I just felt like he's just a great villain, and he's so menacing, and I love getting introduced to all of this team, and I love the introduction of Han. He's so charming. Harrison Ford is great, and yeah, I love the movie. I mean, it's just so entertaining, I think. But the thing that it came down for me is that I just think that Force Awakens took all of the things from that I liked about New Hope, and to me, I know people are like, oh, they just copied New Hope, but in my opinion, they actually improved upon New Hope. They actually made it better.
I totally agree.
So that's a controversial opinion, but I don't care if she's a Mary Sue. That doesn't matter to me. I don't care. I found it very entertaining, and I wanted to cheer. And so for me, I just couldn't put it as number one because I think that something has done it better. And so, yeah, it ended up at number 3. And so here's where things get... well, actually, let's just say, because our number 2 will obviously give away our number 1, so let's just each go around and do our number 3. And then, yeah, I think that's probably better.
Okay. My number 3 was Return of the Jedi. And, let's see, Return of the Jedi is the last one, right?
Of the original, yeah. Original trilogy.
And it has that, it has that really intense scene at the end with Luke and with, at his climax. With what's-his-face, force lightninging Luke, and you're like, when is Vader gonna step in? And you're waiting for it, and he finally does, and I just feel like that's a really powerful scene.
Oh, yeah.
It a million times. So I really like that as my number 3. I know a lot of people don't like the Ewoks and all of that, but I don't know. In my childhood, I really liked those scenes, so I still really like those scenes.
Me too. Yeah, I think that it is so emotional, and I think Mark Hamill is really good in those scenes in Jedi. Just trying to believe. He's such an optimistic, hopeful character, which is great, and it's such a nice contrast to Han, who's sort of cynical and
I mean, it's what the whole series has been building up to, is that redemption of Darth Vader. Is a big moment. So.
All right, so my number 3, and this is a big deal for me because since we watched the 6 and did our reviews, this one has changed for me. It was my old number 1, as with you, Rachel. So not the same movie, but my number 1 fell to number 3, which is Revenge of the Sith. And it was, again, only a half point better than A New Hope on my scale, but interestingly, they hit different highs. So Revenge of the Sith, I felt like there was a greater amount of suspense as far as the difficulty of the task that they were trying to accomplish, and how, basically how hard it was to get to the end. There really was, with A New Hope, you got plenty of suspense, but I felt like with Revenge of the Sith, they topped it out, and so they got the 5 out of 5 on there, and partly for things like Obi-Wan facing off against General Grievous, which I really like the scene. I really like having this, droid / living being who has been trained to use lightsabers and is just like this unstoppable force. It seems like, how can a Jedi even face that, even with their reflexes? And Obi-Wan ends up defeating him with the blaster that he detests, which I really like as a little throwback to A New Hope, when Alec Guinness mentions how uncivilized, or that the lightsaber is so civilized, an elegant weapon from a more civilized age, and then they kind of do a throwback to that. And then special effects as a 5, and lightsaber action as a 5, and the memorable score as well. I actually remember in my first watch through, I was a little disappointed that when Anakin went to storm the Jedi Temple, that they didn't play the Imperial March. I really felt like, it was like his first real campaign as Darth Vader, and I felt like that would have been really appropriate. But the score itself was very memorable, and in fact, the highlight of the whole film for me was Ian McDiarmid as Emperor Palpatine and Darth Sidious. I felt like he was the strongest character in the film and carried it, and so for me, that's what makes it so powerful. And also kind of bridging that gap between everything we knew from the original trilogy and everything that the prequel trilogy was trying to build up to, was kind of fulfilled in this movie. And so for me, that's how it got up to number 3.
Yeah, it's good reasons. I get it. All right, I get ready for the internet to explode, I think. So for me, my number 2, again, I like movies that make me want to cheer. That's my favorite. And so when it came down to it, I had to decide between what I think is actually a perfectly executed movie in Empire Strikes Back and what made me cheer the most, which would be The Force Awakens. And so my number 2 is Empire Strikes Back. Craziness. And I can't, there's literally almost I think it is perfectly executed. It's just a different kind of story than the kind that makes you want to cheer. Even though it does have a few moments like that with Lando and Han, and there's great emotion in Empire Strikes Back with Han and his sacrifice and getting frozen in the carbonite and Chewie's reaction, and it looks so great. It's beautifully filmed. The cinematography is by far the best of the original trilogy. Irving Kershner, he brought a sort of darker element to it. I mean, it does its job in furthering the mythos of the story very, very well, and you get the insane reveal of Darth Vader is Luke's father, and that is so effective, even on the rewatch. And there's just great scenes like when they're with Landau, and he opens the door, and there on the table is Darth Vader sitting there. That's great, and you get the battle between Vader and Luke, where it's so obvious that Vader is the master over Luke, but yet you just feel for Luke because he's just such a sincere character, and he has such a hope about him. And the space battle kind of scenes are great, and I have nothing negative to say about it. It's a great movie. And I do think it is perfectly executed film. So yeah, it's tough to put it in my number 2, but that's where I decided, just because there wasn't really a moment where I cheered, where I stood up and like, yes! I don't know. That makes sense. There you go.
That does make sense. My number 2 is the same. Empire Strikes Back.
Really? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I thought that I would be the only one. Wow, okay.
No, I love it. I love it. It's a great movie. It's perfectly paced. I enjoy everything about it. It's aside from my number 1, which you obviously can tell what it is. It's my favorite. I just enjoy it. There's nothing about it that I'm like, this movie would be perfect if it just weren't for this one little thing. There's none of that. I love Yoda. I love the whole training scenes, and they do a really good job of pacing that.
Oh yeah, that's so good.
Yeah, you're never irritated by it, even though Luke is a little bit whiny during those scenes. It kind of works, and you don't want to smack him or anything. And yeah, the whole Vader scene where you open the door and see Darth Vader and in this white room on this serene planet, and his dark suit is very imposing. And then with Han getting encased in carbonite or whatever it is, and Chewie's response and everybody's response to that is it's just beautiful. It's just a good movie. It's fun.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad you mentioned the Yoda training parts, because that's it has so many quotable moments, and you could tell that Lawrence Kasdan took over in the script department because there's no try, and that is why you fail, because you don't believe in the impossible. There's just so many of these great moments, and yeah, it's a great film.
You got Yoda who sees Luke in a way that Luke can't see himself, and it's sort of this person that we all need in our lives, someone who sees you in a way that you're unable to see yourself.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Jeremy, what about you?
Number 2, The Empire Strikes Back.
No way! I can't believe it. That's so crazy. And Matthew Aronhold, our viewer, he also he says Empire Strikes Back does end on a downer, hard to cheer. However, people cheered at my first 2 viewings in Force Awakens. So we are like some weird anomaly of the internet. I can't believe it. I thought that I would get so much flack for that. But here, explain for you what with your system and everything about Empire.
I will say with my system, so this movie got 64 points out of 70. So I mean, we're talking like excellent quality movie. I am really being nitpicky when I try to look at points where it didn't get all the points. I felt like you just have a very good, very powerful movie. You hit almost the entire range of emotion. I mean, you're laughing. You're you're just devastated when Han Solo's frozen in carbonite. You have the big emotional reveal of Darth Vader as Luke's father, of course. And so there's just a lot going on. Doesn't get to the point of making me cry, and never did. And so I felt like there was a limit to how much emotional attachment I had. However, it did get full marks in humor, got full marks in suspense and difficulty of the protagonist and what they were to face. Had the highest marks for believable characters in any of the in everything except for Force Awakens. Did a great job of show don't tell, which plagued the prequel trilogy. A desire to see what's next, absolutely. I mean, you've just had your hand chopped off by Darth Vader, who says he's your dad, and you're just waiting to see what happens next. Pace was 4.5 out of 5, and that's only because I felt like the scenes on Hoth could have gone just a little bit quicker. But again, I'm looking for points here and there. Lightsaber action, again, it's the second time they've used lightsabers. They did better than in A New Hope, but still felt like there could have been more. And the lightsaber battle between Luke and Vader was good, and just felt like we could have gone a little bit more, which we see later on. Had an amazing score. I mean, Imperial March, can't say much more than that. So just an excellent movie overall. Really I mean, there's nothing wrong with the thing, and it's my number 2.
Wow, I'm shocked. I think we all have the same number 1. I can't believe it. Wow. Okay, so here's how I decided that Force Awakens was my number 1 Star Wars movie. And people will be like, oh, it's just recency bias, you just whatever. And I think it's a flawed film. That's the weird part, is that I think Empire Strikes Back is perfectly executed for what it is. Like, there's hardly anything that I could say, like, do this better, do this differently, where there's a list for me with Force Awakens of things that I would say, probably you didn't need to have a Death Star, and you didn't, there's things that I think, oh, you could have done that moment differently or whatever, but all I can say is that movie made me want to cheer, and I've seen it 5 times, and it made me so happy. And you can say I'm blinded by nostalgia, but I don't think that's really true, because I'm not that nostalgic about Star Wars. I really am not. I came to them a little bit older when it wasn't something that I watched I watched the princess movies more when I was little. And so for me, I just thought that it did some things that the original trilogy didn't do. And I don't think it's given it quite enough credit for that. Like, things like having a stormtrooper defect, like, that was such an interesting character, and we never got anything like that with any of the dark side, any of the Empire in previous iterations. I guess you have Anakin defecting, but that's defecting from the Jedi. But to have somebody from the Empire, the dark side, defecting, that was so cool and so interesting, I thought. And then also I loved Poe Dameron. I loved Rey, and I don't care if she's Mary Sue. It doesn't matter to me. She works for this kind of story. I want a character that I can cheer for, and that I don't need a super flawed character. I'm sorry, I don't. And
and for some reason, that same quality of having everything go their way is never a problem if the lead is a man.
Yeah, like I don't want Indiana Jones to face like all of these obstacles and get the clues wrong all the time. I want him to get the clues right. I want to go on an adventure. So that didn't matter to me, and because I'm sure some people in the comments will probably say that, but I just loved her. I thought Daisy Ridley was great. And the last point I'll make, because I'll let you guys make some other points, is I just thought it was so cool having a true apprentice in the villain for Kylo Ren. Like, you never believed for a second that Vader was truly third in command of the Empire, and he was always the strongest. It didn't make any sense why he wasn't in those positions of power. And so I feel like it was so interesting to have this character, this villain of Kylo Ren, who was so obviously a big baby and so obviously learning and a true apprentice. And so that is another thing I really liked about it. I thought it was emotional with Han's death. And anyway, I'll let you guys what about you, Abby? Why did you pick Force Awakens?
The thing that really clinched it for me is I went and I saw it for the third time just this Friday, just recently. And I'm a novelty person. Like, I don't rewatch movies over and over. It's just not something I do. I don't tolerate it well. I get sick of them. And I wasn't sick of it. I went and it was still fun. And I still wanted to cheer when Han and Chewie came on the screen. And I still, I don't know, I think I loved Finn more than ever in this last viewing. And I still cried when Kylo Ren killed Han Solo, and it just really still resonated with me. It's very rare for any movie of any kind to do that. So, for a Star Wars movie, I thought it was phenomenal.
It does improve on the rewatch. I really do. Every time I saw it, I liked it better.
Yeah, it really does. And I think part of that is that we don't know what's going to happen next. So we have a lot to speculate about and theorize about. So I think that really adds to it. So that kind of gives this movie an edge over some of the others that maybe we were too little to really experience that with. But with the prequels, it's non-issue. Like, there was no, I don't know. I didn't watch that and think about, oh, could this mean that, or what could come next? It was just, oh, this is all right. But with this, part of it is there's so much in there that could have multiple meanings, and I think J.J. Abrams did that on purpose. There's so much that we can speculate about, and they gave us a lot of fodder for that. And you can call that gimmicky if you want, but ultimately, it has all the best elements of every other Star Wars movie ever made. It has all of them. It has the moments when you want to cheer. It has, the wisdom with Maz Kanata. She has some good lines and good advice. It has
Rey's vision. Oh my gosh, that's so good.
It has incredible characters that we love and relate to and are snarky and funny. And it just has everything. It has space battles. It has awesome lightsaber battles.
Yes.
It's got everything.
What about you, Jeremy?
So, number one, absolutely, and with reason. I feel like this was the easiest one of the movies to rank besides the bottom ones.
That's so interesting.
This one for me, it's the best movie of all the movies, and it does take you that complete range of emotion from where you're laughing just so hard through many parts of the movie, and then you're just absolutely, in tears over Han's death unless you have no soul, which I can't help you with that. But it was the only one that had top marks in humor. The only other movie to do that was Empire. It was the only one with top marks in loss or grief, and that's experienced by the audience. Has the most believable characters and characters with depth, which to me, like, even you look back at Darth Vader in A New Hope, you didn't know anything about him. I mean, you knew he was imposing, you knew he was evil, but you didn't know anything about him. And we already know so much more about Kylo Ren. He's so much more developed in one movie than Darth Vader even got after the first three, as in the originals. So I think just did a great job of building depth into the new characters as well, and building on the old ones without making it seem weird. And the old cast who returned did great jobs in their roles. It didn't look like old Carrie Fisher or old Harrison Ford. It was Han and Leia back again, and aged, but back. And one of the other big things here, and again, it's because we have more to come, and we know there's more coming, but there's just the movie gave us more questions than answers, which was a big problem with the prequels, where there's so much exposition and trying to tell you every single thing and explain it all, and here we're left wanting so much more. And there are just so many questions. I can't tell you, like, how many conversations have you had with people about Star Wars since this movie came out? And I haven't experienced that in my lifetime.
Right.
Did a great job of show don't tell, which is related to that, where they just showed us the movie. They didn't explain off every little thing, and we're having to figure.
And they showed us only what we needed to see, no more.
Right.
And some things they didn't show us, which are also giving us reason to talk and speculate, and it's great. Pacing was great. Gives you that Star Wars feel. Perfect marks. No, not even a mention of Jar Jar. So that was good.
And BB-8, how cute was BB-8? I mean, come on.
I mean, if you told me beforehand that they would introduce a new droid who would actually, I would prefer to R2-D2, I would have told you you're crazy.
Right.
You're right.
BB-8 has replaced R2-D2's, taken his place in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And that was tough to do. Special effects were really well done. But again, not perfect. I mean, you've got 3 CGI characters in Snoke, Ankar Plutt, and Maz Kanata. I'll say after rewatching, I've gone 4 times now. Ankar Plutt is the one that bothers me the most.
Oh, really?
I don't even know who that is.
That's the guy at the beginning. The traitor guy.
The junk dealer.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So his animation is what bothers me the most. I have no clue as to why they couldn't have just made him, animatronic or a real thing, a puppet. But it just bugs me, especially at the end when the Millennium Falcon is flying away and he's shaking his fist and you get the full body shot. I'm not buying it. Snoke has actually grown on me. It kind of bugged me the first watch, but I don't mind it now. I feel like he fits right in. And Maz Kanata, I've never had a problem with her. I felt like she was the best of all 3.
Snoke started to grow on me a little more after this last watching also.
Interesting. I mean, I love the lightsaber fights in Force Awakens. I think they're by far the best. I mean, you feel like it is a rod of fire, and I never felt that way.
They used sparks. They used real sparks.
Yeah.
And so it's not CG, that part.
When it's like when it gets close to Rey's head in that scene, like it feels like it's gonna like burn her, and I never felt that way about lightsabers before. I mean, it was so good. And I mean, the flaws that I see in it is that I think that I didn't really like the, what do they call it, the planet, like having another Death Star. I wish they had done something different. That's the biggest problem with it. Is that
Star Killer Base. That's what it feels.
Star Killer Base. That's right. But
even the I forget if they call it the Rebellion in this one.
First Order.
Oh no, but the good guys.
Oh, yeah. The bird.
So they're they get around and they're like, it's another Death Star, and then they're like, no, it's not the Death Star. Here's the Death Star. Here's the new one.
Really big Death Star.
Yeah, I'll be really annoyed if they do that again in the next one, but I don't think so because I think the next one's picking up right after, so there's no time.
Yeah.
To build one.
So the two areas where I felt like they could improve the most was the first one was in the suspense, because again you do have Rey, who I didn't for a second feel like she wasn't going to succeed, and so I marked it down to a 4 because there is a good deal of suspense there, but I never got the feeling that it wasn't going to work out, and even when things got tough. And then the score, I honestly felt like it wasn't that memorable. There was a lot of rehashing of old scores. I appreciated that when Rey calls Luke's lightsaber to her at the final battle, they kind of play this Skywalker theme, but it's a little bit higher for Rey, and so it was really neat to hear that. But again, I don't remember anything original in there. And it's just not in my head. I can't remember it, so it's not. It hasn't made the impact, and that's after seeing it 4 times. So you think there'd be something there, but so those are my 2 marks down, and it got 67 out of 70 points though for me.
Nice.
Yeah, I'd agree with your critiques on that, but even those are things that are like they weren't bad. It's not it had a bad score, or that it had a terrible foe, I guess. It's
right.
Just could have been a little bit better.
And even with Star Killer Base, I still say that, I still say that it was still entertaining. I didn't hate it. It wasn't like it took me out of the movie and I was miserable or something like that. But,
You were just kind of like, come on, guys. Where's creativity? Where's the bad guy creativity?
So I will say one of the big critiques is the Mary Sue factor with Rey, and I think I might have mentioned this in our review of Force Awakens, but I'm okay with it because Rey's still a mystery. We don't know why she knows what she knows, and she doesn't know why she knows what she knows. To me, it's exactly like the Bourne Identity. Jason Bourne wakes up one day and he has these super cool ninja moves that he learned from the government. He doesn't know that. He doesn't know why he knows what he knows, but he can do it all. And that's the point of the movies, is to figure out why. And so I'm okay with Rey being able to essentially awaken to the Force. I loved the final battle with her and Kylo Ren, and he's just like, you need a teacher, and that line really bugs me, but he says, you need a teacher, and you need to learn about the Force. And then she's like, oh, Maz Kanata told me about the Force, and if I just close my eyes, it'll be there. And so she did, and then it's like, boom, right there. And I loved it. So I didn't need that in this movie for her to have to struggle like Luke did. He was a complete novice, and so again, it's adding to the mystery of she's obviously had training. When was it? Where was it? Whose kid is she? Great questions.
Well, and you have to look at the genre. I don't watch let's say an Arnold Schwarzenegger action movie expecting to have some deep conflicted character. I'm sorry, there's just certain genres that I expect certain kinds of characters, and so I think it's silly to I don't know, I want a hero in this kind of story, I don't know.
I think if it were I think if she had any harder time, then people would be criticizing that she was whiny and not a very good hero and that she was weak.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite novels is A Wrinkle in Time, and a lot of people criticize Meg because he's extremely flawed. People are like, oh, she's whiny and she's a baby, and I'm like, well, not every story has the same kind of hero. You know? And this story, The Force Awakens, has a classical hero, and that's okay.
Yeah. We had a few comments from Matthew who's watching. He says, now that I know what a Mary Sue is, which I honestly didn't know what I was before December, I feel like Mary Sue is a lame, lazy, grasping for straws brand of criticism. Well, that, and I think Rey is awesome. And considering the fact that one of the reasons I like her so much is because she's not totally infallible, kind of blows a hole in the whole she's a Mary Sue debate. There was moments when I felt like, oh, you could have made that harder for her, but I think as a whole, like, she has a hard life. Like, I don't know, I don't think that, it just doesn't bother me. Like, if she's a Mary Sue, it doesn't bother me, and I don't know if she is a Mary Sue, if that makes sense.
I agree with that. I think it's a non-argument. I think it's ridiculous criticism. It is a lazy criticism. Like, oh, she's too good of a hero. Okay, then I guess you don't like life.
Yeah, you don't like the genre. I honestly feel like if you don't like this kind of hero, I feel like maybe you don't really love this kind of space opera type genre. You know, where you have characters that are heroes and that go on an adventure. Like, but anyway, Matthew also gave his ranking. So he said 7, Revenge of the Sith, 6, Attack of the Clones, 5, Phantom Menace, 4, Empire Strikes Back, 3, Return of the Jedi, 2, New Hope, and he says, and the shocking change that happened from 3 rewatches. Number 1, The Force Awakens. So we are like some kind of weird cult or something. Force Awakens fans. This is crazy. It's so funny. And he says, I think recency bias was why I was initially scared to admit to liking Force Awakens the best, but I think by a third viewing I felt confident enough to admit it. So there you go. You can feel confident, Matthew, because all of us just admitted it to the world. And it comes down to me liking movies that I want to cheer at, and I just felt like in the end it did everything that New Hope did, but did it a little bit better, and so that made it number 1 for me.
Now I will say, it does have the benefit of all this material that's out there and all the characters we already knew. I mean, if
true.
Harrison Ford or if Han Solo had been killed off in A New Hope, it would not have had this impact because we have all this history built by Lucas, and so you have this great character with depth who we love, and it's because we loved him so much, and that the way that he was killed was just so personal and physical and brutal. Like, it just ripped your heart out with it. And so I think Abrams benefited from what was done before, but also he played all the right notes with it when he did it.
Right. That could have gone a totally different way as far as having all this history. Because if he had botched it, it would have been, for one, really easy to botch. Like, I think there are a lot more ways to screw that up than there are to do it right.
Yeah.
And I also think if he had botched it, it would have felt much, much worse than if he had just had crappy characters that were new characters.
It would have killed the movie.
Oh my gosh.
It would have killed the movie. It would be dead in the water. So it was kind of a blessing and a curse for Abrams as a filmmaker.
Yeah. And I think that there are people and people can not like the movie. I don't care, whatever. People have their opinions. But I heard one critique where they said that they said that Rey's skin was too nice, like living on a desert planet. It should have been more rough. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we were reaching. I mean, come on.
She's got that Skywalker glow.
Yeah. So this is really, really interesting.
Like this movie.
Yeah, I do know some people that genuinely hated it, but I don't really understand that. I feel like, how can you not be at least moderately entertained by it? Yeah. I don't know. Don't get it. But there's lots of other movies that other people are crazy about that I'm not that crazy about, so I guess I understand it in a way as well. So that's cool. And I mean, the nice thing too about Star Wars is there is kind of something for every sort of personality, as opposed to like I think some of the superhero franchises, I feel like there's not as big of range as you get with the Star Wars movies, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and I'll just say, J.J. Abrams has taken my two favorite franchises in Star Trek and Star Wars, and just done amazing work with them. I mean, there are a few people that I would trust as much as him. And he's just proven he can take something that we all love dearly and make it great. Make it great again. Sorry, not going for a Trump there, but
I didn't think of that. I almost want
Star Wars great again.
Yeah, I almost want him to do a Terminator movie because the last 3 have not been very good, and he's just with Mission Impossible, Star Trek, and Star Wars. He's just shown this amazing ability. But so let's real quick look at our sort of. Maybe combine kind of our rankings. I should have been writing them all down. We clearly have Force Awakens as number 1.
Yes.
There's no doubt. I think, would you say, did we all have, where did you have Empire Strikes Back, Abby?
We all had Empire at 2.
Did we all have it? So that's 2. And then, so 3, it got a little bit different. What were our 3s again? Mine, New Hope.
Revenge of the Sith.
Return of the Jedi.
And I had Revenge of the Sith.
That's right, it gets tricky. Where did you have...
we could just agree to 3 to 5 being those 3.
Well, I had... So you had A New Hope at number 3, right? Rachel?
Yes.
I had A New Hope at number 5 or 4. I kind of was on the fence about my 4.
Where did you have New Hope?
A New Hope 4.
Okay.
So probably call A New Hope either 3 or 4.
So yeah, if each of us had it kind of in and around there, let's have New Hope at 3.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I think we could say, because all of us had it fairly around the same, we could say Revenge of the Sith is 4. What do you think?
I could put Revenge.
And I had it at 5, and
Jeremy had it at 4.
I had it at 3.
And I had it at 4, and you had it at 5. So yeah, 4
so
is...
Revenge of the Sith at 4, and then Return of the Jedi at 5.
Yep.
And then we'll have Phantom Menace, and then Attack of the Clones. So there you go. That is our Star Wars rankings.
I'm surprised how similar they were, actually.
I am too. I thought that I would be defending Force Awakens, and then I would be the only one. And so that is really, really funny. Because it is hard, because like I said, I really do think Empire Strikes Back is perfectly executed, so it's hard to fault it. But I like movies that I can cheer, so there you go. Well, this has been really fun. I've actually enjoyed this more than I thought I would. Well, do you guys want to give you where people can find you? Your Twitter or whatever?
I can be found at Abby_Kid on Twitter. And we have a blog. I write on a blog. It's Kid. What is the name of my blog? JeremyandKid.wordpress.com.
Okay, great.
Okay, and I'm on Twitter at Jeremy_Kid.
Great. All right. Well, awesome. Well, thanks so much. And yeah, we'll have to get together now that you guys are moved and everything. We'll have to figure out another series or something to do. So just let me know if anything interests you.
Sounds good.
Thanks for hosting us.
Definitely see you for Rogue One.
Yes, definitely. I'm bummed they bumped everything, but I'm very excited for it. So, all right. Well, thanks so much.
Yep.
Okay.